Hello, welcome to my explanation of Chaism. Chaism is a game about inverted time. It's an experimental game that I've been thinking about for several years, but just last year, a friend of mine, we worked out a way to turn it into a game in a way that it makes sense. So the general concept is we wanted something super simple, so we started with the Ahsokaban. So in this game, you use arrow keys, and time progresses whenever you move. Now, it's from your perspective. So the as you move around on your side, that side is white, and you're trying to press all the buttons to progress to the next level. Now, when you cross over this barrier, the two sides flip. So now time is moving backwards on the opposite side and moving forward on your side. And you'll notice down below that you've now kind of done a U-turn on the timeline. So we use this timeline right at the bottom to kind of explain, what's happening to different entities. So in this case, I'm going to walk onto the button, and then my previous self is going to walk backwards onto the other button, and we progress. So here in a later level, we have two buttons on the same side to press, and so we're going to use the timeline in a more traditional time travel sense. So I'm going to, I'll get on the button here. Now, I have limited times that I can cross over this timeline. Every time I cross over on a given spot, I use up one of the barriers, and so I can't cross back over that spot. Now, what I want to do here, though, is I want to wait. So you hit spacebar and you wait for time to work its way backwards, and I'm actually going past when I originally arrived when the level started. So now I'm going to cross back over and wait here for myself to spawn in and arrive and press the other button. So later on, we introduce some other concepts. We have these pillars that you can push around. These graded squares are like ice. So if you push the ice on them, the ice will have its own momentum. And there's also some certain buttons that only pillars can press. So in this case, I push the pillar across the barrier, and now it's moving backwards in time, right? So I don't see it anymore. It's not on the other side. It's moving backwards on the timeline. Now, maybe I hang around a little bit longer, and then I cross over. Now, it's not on the other side either, because I waited longer on the first side, I'm arriving on this other timeline before the pillar shows up. So I wait for the pillar here, and it shows up, and I stop its momentum, and then I press it down and complete the puzzle. So later in the game, we introduce other types of pillars. Now, this pillar isn't affected by time. It's kind of a timeless pillar. So when I press it across, it doesn't disappear. It continues to move forward in time relative to me. So we're able to explore this concept of this pillar by interacting with it on different parts of the timeline. So I'm walking around over here with a purpose, because when I go over here and I press this timeless pillar across the timeline, I need to use my previous self's recording running backwards to push it into place. So jumping further ahead in the game, we have another type of pillar that is they're like these twin pillars, and if they exist on the same side at the same time, they annihilate each other. So you have to do manipulations of the timeline. So in this case, I need to kind of hide this from the other one. So I'm going to push it across. Now it's going backwards in time, and I'm going to give it some extra time, and then I go across. Now I've got to get over here and press this one across before the other one arrives, kind of like juggling them. And so now this one arrives, and then when I cross over, my previous self is going to go and push it out of the way. And now we're catching up to the time where I pressed the previous one across, and now it's able to get here. They're basically able to cross over and not exist in the same time. So you make these little pockets of time by manipulating the inversion of different objects and different versions of yourself. And one later concept in the game is these sentries. They'll get triggered when you line up with them, and they run into you, and they'll kill you. So you need to avoid them, but they have their own interactions with the timeline. So what happens in this case is when I cross over, a bunch of things happen, and that's because it had momentum. It was headed towards the barrier, and I jumped across, but it continued to take a couple of steps in the timeline after I was gone, and then it crosses over, and so it arrived before I did. And so some of the puzzles, you have to take this concept of, it's kind of like you're the pillar in this case, and you're trying to manipulate it to arrive before you do to solve these puzzles. So that's kind of a preview of kind of the design spaces we've played with around this inverted time concept, and really happy with how it turned out. And we've put it up on Steam for people to play with, but it's meant to be kind of a sandbox to explore these concepts. So thank you for your time.